This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelly Bidlin.
Hey, it is Long Shots Golf Betting Podcast here on the VSiN Podcast Network. I'm Matt Brown. That is Wes Reynolds. Just the two of us today. If you're a Kelly Bidlin fan, sorry. You're not getting any Bidlin here today on this one. Me and Wes going to look back over the last couple of weeks. We didn't spend a ton of time talking about what we have seen, see if there's anything we want to take with us going forward. Obviously, we will look ahead to what's going down in New Orleans this week as well. And then we'll wrap up here to kind of reset the season. Where do we sit right now? Where are we still headed? What do the stats look like on a lot of these different guys out there? Is there anybody we think might be on the downswing, on the upswing? Is somebody just level across the board? And maybe this is like a steady Eddie, top 20, top 30, top 40 guy as we move forward, Wes. But we get done this week over at Harbour Town. We get the Scottie rally like we always do, gets to the playoff, isn't able to get it done because Matt Fitzpatrick hit a 4-iron that I'm not going to lie, made it wiggle a little bit downstairs for me. That was like one of the most ridiculous 4-irons like I've ever seen as a guy who's trying to get better at golf and trying to figure out how to do these certain things. Like that shot was just something else. And with that, he goes on and wins the event. It's another awesome finish for Scottie. The demise of Scottie, people were talking about, was a little bit premature, but man, the consistency, the game that is there, the potential that's there, specifically on certain types of courses for Matt Fitzpatrick is definitely impressive.
Yeah, and I had him actually a couple of years ago when he won this thing. Of course, everybody knows the Fitzpatricks. They vacation there at Hilton Head a lot when they were young, and he loves Harbour Town. And that's where I'm kicking myself because it's like, I feel like I'm missing like obvious plays right now. Just a little bit off, actually, a lot off, I think, from typical standard. And I didn't play him, and he held on, missed that par at 18. Which got him into the playoff because he looked like he had this on cruise control and then hit that beautiful 4-iron into the wind, made birdie, and ends up triumphing over Scottie. Siwoo Kim, no surprise on a Pete Dye. He's always very good. He finishes outright third, 16 under. I had the one I had in the mix actually was Brian Harman, who had that 63 on Saturday and then shot 5 over. There were several guys, by the way, that were kind of up there on the leaderboard, lurking behind Fitzpatrick. Brian Harman, I think Potgeider, who else? Victor Hovland, Sepp Straka. Like these guys were guys that just really had tough times, but it ended up being a Fitz Scottie showdown. Colin Morikawa also ended up playing solid, ends up T4, but Fitz, yeah, he's one of the top players in the world right now, and I think I've bet him on like all the weeks where he hasn't won, and I haven't been on him the weeks he has.
It's true.
It's mistiming because we kind of knew, and we were pointing out like, hey, Matt Fitzpatrick, wait till he gets away from the West Coast where he's going to putt better. And he certainly has since they've gone back to the Southeast in Florida and Georgia, and then last week in South Carolina. So Fitz wins again. He's very good on this course. Obviously, you got to look at the world rankings now, and he's a top 5 player in the world, and he's certainly playing like it. I think right now could have had a third win, almost did at the Players several weeks back, but he's playing very well right now, and he's up there, I think, with the class of the world, with the Rorys and the Scotties and those guys. I don't know very many guys that are playing better than Matt Fitzpatrick right now, and there's a reason why he's the favorite this week at the Zurich, which we'll get to momentarily.
Yeah, it is. First big losing tournament for me in a while. I only got home Gary Woodland top 20. Xander bogeys 2 of the final 3 holes to not get in the top 10. That would have at least made it just a small loser for me this week. But I kept with it, right? I said Xander's just a top 10 machine. He backdoors his way in there over and over and over again. I loaded up on it yet again this past week, and 2 of the final 3 holes he bogeys and ends up T12 instead of inside the top 10 there. So yeah, big loser for me this week. And you mentioned some of these guys that showed out, but some interesting other guys that, again, we'll talk about towards the end of the program of what do we think about these guys moving forward. But a guy that I certainly bet a lot last year, haven't really this year. Bud Cauley finds his way into the top 10. Ricky Fowler into the top 10 here in this one. We're starting to see at least a little bit more consistency out of Patrick Cantlay. He's still not sniffing winning anything, but maybe he is a guy that we can try to get some favorable head-to-heads again, with, or 3 balls or whatever, because it seems like he's starting to figure stuff out at least a little bit more. And then, listen, it's not a top 10 finish. It's not a whatever, but another top 20 finish for Akshay, who we talk about consistency on tour this year, Wes. Yes, you've got your Scotties and Fitzpatricks and things like that, but, Akshay just week in, week out might not be competing to win it all, but is putting his name up there at least towards the top-ish of the leaderboard. Another guy that I'm pretty excited about, I think, for the second half of the season to try to find a spot that I think that he could lift another trophy.
Yeah, and on the other side, a couple of disappointments. One that you and I shared. Jordan Spieth never really competed. Ends up T33. Couldn't find a fairway. Just did not hit the ball well. He'd been hitting his irons really well. Actually, putted very well last week. But Jordan Spieth, now it's 4 years since he has won, and you're like, okay, when's this guy going to win again? Because it's all about timing, and he's a guy that did not play very well. Tommy Fleetwood did not play very well. He's a guy that we're kind of saying, okay, he finally won here in America. He's going to win a big one here again soon in a major championship. Did not show very well last week. I think finished well down the board, T52.
Wes, ever since he moved to the damn MC Hammer pants, he's not been able to play golf. And I think that a friend needs to pull him aside and say, hey, Tommy, I know that you're a clothing free agent right now and you're just trying some stuff out, but buddy, this isn't working for you. You need to go back to just normal pants.
Yeah, just get some get with the Adidas or somebody, or wear some Ralph Lauren or somebody. You're a man about the world, lives over there in Dubai for part of the year, so you can find a clothing manufacturer. So it's got to be something, because this is the year you kind of felt like, okay, he's going to really break through and maybe win that major. He's been a top 10, top 15 player for several years. So we shall see the fashion choices, and then also, just hitting it a little bit better. He hasn't been quite as sharp with the ball striking, and he's a guy kind of in the summer where I'm really going to like him. So I'm not skirting that necessarily, but you would like to see some more positive signs.
Yeah, and this is, I think some of these other guys too that last year or maybe earlier this season flashed a little bit. And I don't know if there's something wrong with the swing, Wes, if just the course fits, if it's just maybe, hey, listen, you wear down a little bit, or you're just riding the heater. Obviously, Minwoo Lee was all the rage, disappointed big time at the Masters, T60 here at this one. Obviously a course that, we usually think of, okay, Minwoo Lee, he hits a long way, so that's what we're looking for here. But I've been sitting here beating the table for this guy's a well-rounded golfer, and I keep saying that over and over again. And here we are with another disappointing performance out of him in this one. Justin Thomas was damn near last in this thing for the vast majority. And I bet Jake Knapp this week, and Jake Knapp only finished above a handful of people as well. And so maybe these guys that I thought are better suited to longer courses, but I thought their game could translate to the shorter positional courses. Maybe I was just wrong about that, and I got to tuck those guys away for courses where length really matters.
Yeah, there's only seemingly like a few guys right now that are almost like course proof, and that's the elite guys that could win on, shorter ball striking courses, plotter courses like Harbour Town, and then like a big boy course like a Torrey Pines or somewhere like that, or Muirfield Village when we get to the Memorial here at the end of May. So yeah, some guys they can contend about every week. Good form is good form, and then some guys you really got to target and really got to look at that course fit.
Speaking of the PGA Tour, Wes, it does come out, and we actually talked about this a couple of months ago here on the podcast when it got floated, but it is officially official that the tour will not start in Hawaii moving forward. They're going to do that stateside, and getting rid of the Hawaii events, I guess for us that have been watching golf for a long time, it's a little sad, but it's the same deal as the NFL with the Pro Bowl and all the stuff like that. Like, it used to be a big treat, and you went to Hawaii and it was like this, like, oh, here's your reward for what, you're a pro athlete. These guys make so much money now, and they all have like jet deals and all the stuff. And they're like, going to Hawaii is actually more of a burden than it is a benefit to them. They want to go to Hawaii and just relax and chill. They don't want to go and work in Hawaii. And so with that, we're going to get the season kickoff stateside. And honestly, it probably is better for some of those earlier tournaments as well to try to get some of these guys out and get them to some of these. Obviously the Amex is one where the only handful of names that play that are the dudes that are sponsored by Amex and all that. So maybe we get some more guys come out for that and whatnot at the beginning of the season. But it is officially official that we will start here inside the Continental 48.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate to see that. I believe that they announced that the Sony was going to be now a Champions Tour event. I believe that I had read that. But there's also competition from the DP World Tour as well, because you get a lot of big names, especially in January, that go play that Middle East swing. Especially in Dubai. They moved Abu Dhabi later in the season, but they have those two events in Dubai. So a lot of those European guys, Rory, Tommy Fleetwood, Lowry, some of those guys, they're going to start over there. And that's where they're going to start their golf season. So that's competition as well. I'm sad to see it go because there's a lot of history with those events, with Kapalua and with Wailai. And, I've had decent success hitting those events over the years, as have you. But I understand from a business standpoint. And look, the PGA Tour with the new leadership, they also want to hit some bigger markets.
Yeah.
They want to hit, hey, can we get a regular stop in Chicago instead of like every 3 or 4 years where we have the BMW, going to New York, going to Philadelphia, going to Boston. They want to hit these bigger markets, I think. So it makes sense from a business standpoint. But, I'm a nostalgia guy, so I'm a fan of history. So you hate to see these events go, but that's just the change of the business right now.
Yeah, working in production in my other life as well, I'm sure they were getting a decent amount of pressure from their television partners as well, because it's expensive to ship all that equipment over to Hawaii and do all these events and stuff, as opposed to just starting here and being able to just truck them everywhere. And
those
all of
events
that
also get lost with obviously the NFL playoffs and now college football not ending on New Year's Day, now going into like the third, even fourth week of January, for God's sakes, when you're going into the national championship game. So you get a little bit lost in the shuffle, I think, with those two events. And there's some people that even forget. They're like, hey, wait a minute, doesn't Torrey Pines, isn't that the first tournament of the season? It's like, no, we've already played like 3 events.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for us to see how many times we mess up. It seems as if the Century, that was the sponsor over there in Hawaii, is probably going to take over that tournament there at Torrey Pines. I guess the deal with Farmers has run its course, and so how hard is it going to be to not call that the Farmers moving forward? Right. And whatever, calling it the Century and not thinking that it's over in Hawaii and all kinds of, it's going to be interesting. We will do our best, but that's a long time from now. So we'll have a chance to maybe beat that into our brains. But we are heading down to New Orleans. This is the team event. It's kind of the break, right? It's hey, listen, it's a fun event. If you choose to play it, there's no pressure on this thing at all, though. It's not for nothing. You do get exemptions into tournaments, and you do get points and things like that. And honestly, the prize money is not half bad either in all of this, Wes. But, I understand why a bunch of the big names don't play it. I also get why some of these guys want to come out and play it, and they play it with friends from college, their brother, their, dudes that they like have been, hanging out with on tour for a super long time and all of that. And honestly, the format, I get it, for a casual viewer, maybe is a little tricky and all that with the rotation and stuff, but I kind of like it. You and I and Kelly have talked about it several different times. A little bit of something different isn't bad. Like, we don't want this all the time, but I mean, just changing it up just a tad from the monotony of week in, week out, this is exactly what you get every single time, I don't think is a bad thing.
No, I don't either. It's a little bit of a dart throw to bed. Really, everything's been a dart throw for me lately in golf. But hopefully, maybe this will be the week to turn it around. But you're right. The winners do get some stakes here. You do get the FedEx Cup points. You do get the exemptions to the PGA to the players. You don't get it for the Masters. You don't get the OWGR points. And I think why you see a lot of guys at the top end taking off is because this schedule is packed. I think somebody put something out for Scottie Scheffler. Like after this week, like he's not going to be off until like almost June because he's of course a Texas guy, so he's going to play the Texas event. So he's going to play the Byron Nelson and he's going to play Colonial there in Fort Worth. But you have two signature events, by the way, coming up. You have the new Miami Championship as Doral is back on the schedule. Myrtle Beach, by the way, is the alternate event from that. And then you go right into the Truist, which I believe is right there back at Quail Hollow. They didn't have it there last year because of the PGA. And then you go right into the PGA. So you've got a lot here. So this is almost the only, if you want to call it dead week, for some of these guys to take off, even though I think you still have kind of the same standard. You still have some names here at the top.
Yeah, it is a course outside of, this is the course on tour that I played the most because they don't have the tournament here in Vegas anymore. So since they don't play at Summerlin, I played this one handful of times, 6-8 times. I've been able to play this one. And, Wes, I'm sure you saw as you were previewing this and have over the years and all of that. And one of the things they talk about is it being a long course and almost feel like it plays longer. And I can attest to that, right? I mean, like you're out there and it's long to begin with, but this is old swampland. It's just like you are getting no carry on the ball that is unnatural. And then it's soft. And so you get no rollout and you get whatever. And you're kind of like, damn, man, like, this is a slog, so like this, it's a good thing. It's a party atmosphere and it's a whatever. Cause I don't know if they would love this tournament if this was just a normal tournament like it was a decade ago.
Yeah, this is 74-25. Of course, remember a long time ago, this used to be played at English Turn, which was a little bit more of a challenging course here for these guys. But a lot of bunkers on this course, 106, 5 water hazards on 7 holes. Fairways aren't cavernous, but they're not narrow either. Overseeded POA on the greens, about a little over 5,000 square feet on average, 12 average stem. Not a lot of penal rough here, so you can still miss fairways and get it around and score on this place. But a Pete Dye design, as we mentioned, we talked about Siwoo's success on the Pete Dye. So you do have another Pete Dye here. In terms of the format, I do want to touch on that, not gloss over that. This is a team event. So in the first round, you have 4-ball, which is best ball. The best score is the score that you count. And then the second round, they go to alternate shot, which is, we see that in the Ryder Cup and President's Cup, where each team, you drive off the tee, I hit the second shot, you hit the third, I hit the fourth, and so on and so forth. So that's the change. And then you do 4-ball on Saturday and you do the alternate shot foursomes there on Sunday. So it just alternates back and forth. And I believe there are 74 teams. There are usually 80, but 74 here. 33 in ties make the weekend, by the way. So there is a cut for this event. So, yeah, this is, I don't want to say clunky in terms of negative, but this is a much different format than you're used to seeing. So, we'll get in that maybe later with any stat modeling that we did. I did not do really very much, if did anything at all. So a fun event. You usually have a pretty condensed leaderboard. Nobody usually really runs away, even though you're shooting almost 30 under par to win this thing, certainly in the high 20s. There's very rarely a rout here. There's usually a few of those teams that are kind of in the mix, and you'll see it when you look. You'll see guys that maybe in the 4-ball didn't shoot very well, and then the alternate shot, they're great. So, just got to try to be as consistent as you can for 4 days here.
Yeah, it's one of those where people are going to say, hey, Matt, you come on this podcast all the time and say these are the best golfers that you've ever seen in the world. If they were playing at your club, like your jaw would drop. How in the world don't they, whenever 2 of them have a shot at scoring, like, yes, that's why the scoring is low and what it is. If 2 dudes know that as long as if me and Wes are on a team and Wes is in close already, then like I'm going at the pin, like I am going at it, right? So like these dudes are like, when you watch them on a typical weekend, they're not always trying to throw darts because there is some we often talk about bogey avoidance and whatever, and like the risk reward on some of these holes and some of the things that they're doing, you're still just trying to get through the round. You don't want to cost yourself a tournament if you're, sitting there on hole number 8 or whatever. However, if Wes is already gone and Wes is sitting 7 feet out, well, you better believe I'm firing dead ass at that pin, right? And whatever. And so like, that's why you see the scores where they are, because you can play it completely different, right? Which we'll go into what I'm sure, like, whenever we get to our plays, like you just said, I did absolutely no modeling this. I basically just looked up different stats that I thought would be important, and then just kind of singled out a couple of guys and stuff. And then like, that's kind of where I formed the teams and stuff like that. But you're going to look at the leaderboard, and inevitably this happens every year. There's going to be a team of 2 guys that you're like, who the hell are these even guys?
I've never heard of these guys. Absolutely.
I don't even know who they are. But the thing is they're able to take advantage of being pro golfers because you have 2 opportunities at every hole, for 2 of the 4 rounds. And so it'll be interesting. I kind of went after some birdie makers and things like that, and we'll see how it all plays out. But Fitzpatrick and Fitzpatrick, the brother combination, are your favorites here in this one. About 12-1, a little under 12-1 is kind of where you're going to find them. Obviously coming off, actually both of them coming off of wins here heading into New Orleans. So big thing for them. I think the biggest change here is the second team on the board here, Wes, where Rory and Lowry had won this thing, played together again last year, but Rory deciding to take off this year, and Shane Lowry called up Brooks Koepka.
Yeah, didn't have to go very far either, because they both live in that Jupiter era and obviously get along and probably, play Seminole and a lot of those courses down there. So, I think, could be a very fruitful pairing. And honestly, it matters a little bit more for Brooks, because this would give him the 2-year PGA Tour exemption. It gets him also into the signature events. I'm sure we all saw the video last week there in Harbour Town, where he was the first alternate. So he's kind of there just chilling on Thursday to see if somebody was going to withdraw and if he could get in the field. And that's like, this is Brooks Koepka, right? Who's won 5 majors, but we kind of know that situation. He's already in the PGA, so he wouldn't need that. But this would all of a sudden, if he would win this, would get him into the Truist, would get him into the Miami and Memorial and the Travelers and all the different signature events. So Brooks isn't here, I think, necessarily to go through the motions at all.
No, I think, if the odds weren't so short, and I know this is kind of spoiling my play. If the odds weren't so short, I would have been targeting that team for sure, because it's the only team where I think there is super motivation, right? Because the rest of these guys, everyone would love all of this stuff. But again, like we said, there's not this is still a team event. The pressure's light. There's all some of that. But like you mentioned, for Brooks, it's a different scenario than for a lot of these guys because a lot of these other guys they would love to be able to get into all these, whatever. Brooks is one of the best golfers of the last decade plus, and he's not in these things right now. So it does mean something different for Brooks than it does a lot of these other guys.
They will be popular though, because I think number one, bettors, if they're getting even involved this week, you have a team that you can root for, because Shane Lowry's an easy guy to root for, and obviously Brooks has his fair share of fans. So the casuals, I think this will be popular, but the price, and I'm even seeing one shop, I believe Bet Rivers at like 9-1. It's like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Not on this one. Like, that's a team that I think I would not be shocked if they played very well. And I think that they will have some chemistry together, despite the fact that one's a European and one's an American, but they play a lot of golf together and seemingly get along. And a lot of those guys that live down there in that area of Florida. So there's more familiarity maybe than we would think.
And if you are not a big time golf follower, and if you are a casual, well, that is almost where the big names end. Like, there are a few deeper down, but dudes that are like, guys that aren't playing very well. I mean, like Tony Finau's in the field. Tony Finau's not playing very well and hadn't played very well in a long time. Obviously, people would know that name, and there are some other names here and there. But again, as far as like the casual viewer, and if you've been looking at the top of leaderboards, that's where you pretty much stop when you get to this. And so the odds are pretty interesting. But, you know, Wes, I was kind of hoping, and I guess maybe because this tournament, maybe even specifically early on, it's only dudes that follow golf a ton that are betting this, or maybe they think that only sharper golf guys are going to be betting this. Like, I had targeted Gerard and Yellam Raju as a team that I want, and they're the damn third shot on the board. Like, yeah. I was like, oh, this is good. This is a great pairing for something like this. You got the bomber off the tee, you got this other guy amazing with the irons, whatever. And then I'm like, third shot on the board. Like, oh my God, you know, that was such a bummer to me.
Yeah, there were a couple that I ended up playing that kind of were shorter prices than I wanted. But if you look at recent years here, in terms of teams that have won, you haven't really had a ton of bombs. You've had a mixture a little bit. Like Novak and Griffin were 25. That's kind of like the mid-range of the market.
Yeah.
Most years here. Lowry and McIlroy were 8-1. And the fact is they had to go to a playoff against Chad Ramey and Martin Traynor. Like, here you have these two superstars that are both major champions against guys that are kind of grinders on the tour. And they had to go to a playoff. Hardy and Riley were a bit of a long shot at 40-1. Cantlay and Schauffele won this at 9-1. Leishman and Cameron Smith, Team Australia, won this at 12-1. John Rahm in 2019 was like the emerging superstar, and he won it with Ryan Palmer. And that was actually a runaway at 16-1. But in recent years, you've kind of seen the shorter mid-range guys. That doesn't mean don't play a bomb maybe somewhere on the card, but I was just looking at these pairings, Matt, and I was going down the board, and I was like, you know, where you're trying to make a case for somebody. It's like, okay, I know one or two of these guys are probably going to be in contention on Sunday. And all you had to do is just kind of go look at the leaderboard last year. Like the Højgaards, who I had last year, finished second. Like that made sense, right? Yeah. The two brothers and their known commodities. But you see some of these guys like Taylor Dixon and Trace Crow. Who are those guys? We don't know those guys. Isaiah Salinda and Kevin Velo. Who are those guys? Hayden Buckley and Braden Thornberry. Like, these were some top 10 teams. Chad Ramey and Justin Lauer, who, by the way, are paired up again this year. Yeah. Luke List, Henrik Norlander. Like, you saw some names, by the way, and that's why you don't want to just bet names. Like the Fitzpatricks missed the cut here last year by one. Colin Morikawa missed the cut with Kurt Kitayama, a team that you thought would be very good together. So you did have some name guys that did miss the cut this week. So that's always why it is a little bit of a crapshoot, I think, with this event.
To kind of round out these short-ish shots, guys, Novak Griffin, Thorbjornsen Phillips, Rai Thagala, Kiefer Brennan, Moore Clark, Pinge Wallace, Lee Smith, and that takes us to about 25-1. There's only a couple other that stay in that range before you get to 30-1. You're going to get Thompson and Eckroat, McCarty and Meisner. And then outside of that, everybody 30-1 or longer for the most part. And we'll kind of talk through some of these other teams that it did not end up on our card and maybe why. But Wes, the method to my madness this week, and this is where we would normally go into, you know, the stats that matter. And then we would go into how we weighted them in our model and then what the model spit out and all of that. I've tried to model this in years past, as you'll remember.
So have I.
It didn't bear any fruit. And so I'm just kind of like, I'm wasting my time, I think, right? Like, so I've tried to model this in the past, and it never was anything that was really actionable information. It was more just something for me to talk about on a podcast. And so, like, I don't want to waste our listeners, our viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, which, by the way, hey, how you doing? Hit the subscribe button. Thanks for being here. But I'm wasting their time too. So I'm not doing it this year.
No, I'm not either. But I think if you're looking, and I'm sure you probably eyeballed it, as did I. If you're looking for certain stats, I think, general, really, the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, like really go general here. I think that's looking at strokes gained tee to green or strokes gained total, birdies are better. Because that's what you got to do, is make a bunch of birdies in either format, whether it's 4-ball or the alternate shot foursomes. But this isn't where you really want to go into, like, distance from the edge of the fairway or club head speed or, something like that, or really the proximity buckets, because you have so many random pairings, which is one of the things that makes this intriguing. You might have two bombers paired together, and then you might have two short hitting slappies that maybe hit good irons, or two good putters that are together that are kind of all over the place off the tee. So everybody's going to play this differently. This is not like where everybody plays it the same way, like you kind of saw last week a little bit at Harbour Town, where, okay, I don't have to really hit driver off the tee if I don't want to. Some guys are going to play this a little bit differently. So I do think it's kind of you just talked about it is a little bit of a fool's errand, maybe, to do like a total model here, but you can still eyeball different stuff and be like, okay, there's a couple guys here that are both top 30 in strokes gained total, or both top 30 in birdie or better. Let me see if that corresponds to the price, and then bet it or don't bet it accordingly.
So I kind of went through, and just to give everyone the how I did the process, and you can explain yours as well, and then we'll get into where we ended up. So I looked first at just strokes gained total, obviously, and that's basically just going to show you the best players in the field, and you kind of know that anyway. So then I moved really, Wes, into strokes gained ball striking, and just kind of tried to compare dudes who are good off the tee and with approach, where obviously you're going to be teeing off on some of the alternate holes, you're going to be hitting your irons on some of the other on the alternate holes, and so who does both of those fairly well? And so I kind of started my search for a team that I wanted with the ball striking kind of numbers, and then worked backwards from there, because I'm like, look, like we just mentioned, in the four balls, most of these guys are gonna be able to go low. It's when you get to the alternate shot, like, how do they work with each other? Where are their skills aligned and all this stuff? So that's how I decided to reverse engineer it. Again, everybody, not saying that's the right way to do it, just telling you how I did it.
Yeah, and I kind of did it the same way, basically, because I don't think you don't want the analysis by paralysis by analysis, I should say. I got that backwards, but because you have to be willing, and really that's for any event, even events where we can model and we really know, okay, here's what it takes to win here, where it's very clearly defined. You're going to get some randomness and some variance in any event. You're especially going to get it here. You're going to get guys that, oh man, they're no-brainers, and then they miss the cut, like I was saying earlier, and then you're going to get random pairings here that just how the hell did they get on the leaderboard? Because all these guys, a lot of these guys are going to try. Really everybody is. We talked about the Fitzpatricks. It's okay, maybe they use this as kind of a vacation to play together, but it's Matt just won his second event of the year, and you mentioned Alex won the Indian Open at the end of the month on the DP World Tour on a very hard golf course, by the way. So everybody is going to try, because they wouldn't be playing, because there is a lot on the line in terms of different exemptions. But yeah, I think it's really hard to go too knee deep in the weeds here, like we would in other weeks. That's why very general stroke gain total, or a tee to green, ball striking, like you mentioned, which ball striking includes accuracy plus greens and regulation. So, just your general stats. I don't think you want to go really too far, where I'm not going to go, okay, strokes gained par fours, 450 to 500 yards or anything like that, because I just have to accept the variance, really. This is a little bit of a go with your gut week. And usually every week I'll have at least one, play, or maybe two plays where it's go with my gut, and then some others are models. This is almost all go with your gut, I think, really, this week. And hope for the best, and hope you have a couple in contention on Sunday.
So if anybody's wondering, in 2026, over the last 30 rounds, and the reason I did last 30 rounds is, one, pretty much everyone in the tournament has at least 24 strokes gained rounds on their card, and all that, because that's the only ones that we're getting data from anyway. So that at least does open it up to some of these other ones that have played in more tournaments and also played in strokes gained data. But at least if I go out to 30, I'm getting most of the people in the field with some sort of data thing. This is going to be no surprise to you. Yes, Matt Fitzpatrick is the number one over the last 30 rounds, ball striking, which again is the combination of off the tee and approach. But Austin Smotherman, number 2, Brooks Koepka, Keith Mitchell, Jordan Smith, Michael Brennan. There's our Yellow Miraju guy yet again, sitting there at 7th ball striking last 30 rounds here in 2026. Ryan Gerard, Joel Damon, Max McGreevy, Davis Thompson, and Sam Stevens takes us to the top 12, kind of the top dozen guys right there. And so that's where I started digging in further, was that first little group. And obviously I knew that I was not going to play the Fitzpatricks, and I knew I wasn't going to play Koepka and all this. So then started looking at some of these other guys to start the teams as well. And, I just wanted to read those out loud to the people that aren't watching. They can at least hear, some of the players that were at least in consideration right off the bat for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of those names are considered, and some of those names are even played on my card this week.
So, Wes, let's go ahead and get into it then, because we don't need to get much more into the process here. We can just give some explanations as to why we liked the teams that we picked. And, a couple of them to me are just prices more than anything else, right? It's not even necessarily that I'm head over heels for the teams or the golfers themselves. It just seemed like the prices comparatively to some of the other pairings wasn't where I thought they should be. So that's, another little preface to where we're going to go with this. So what's your card look like?
Yeah, and one that we already mentioned, and I wish we were getting more of a bargain, even though I think it's probably kind of a fair price when you consider how they played. I did play Sudarshan, Yellow Miraju, and Ryan Gerard, plus 1750 was the best I saw out there at
my
DK.
favorite team, by the way, in the whole thing. Like my favorite team in the whole thing, just from a skill set standpoint.
And also, I love the narratives. That. I love the narrative street stories. Ryan Gerard, a North Carolina Tar Heel, was supposed to play with his fellow college mate, David Ford. David Ford had to withdraw. David Ford's a guy that we expect is going to win on the PGA Tour, I think, in the future, won the PGA Tour U. So he's got a good pedigree. But so Gerard picks up a ringer here in Sudarshan. I was like, how is Sudarshan not partnered with anybody here? Because even if you look at the official field, I still think it says Gerard Ford. But it is Sudarshan with Ryan Gerard. Of course, Gerard, we know the story. He got in the Masters. He went over to Mauritius at the end of the year, finished runner-up on the DP World Tour, and then continued it. First 2 events on the PGA Tour, he finishes runner-up. Now, he's cooled off a little bit, but the golf is still solid. He's 12th this season on approach on the PGA Tour, which means he's up with like the big boys that are great with the irons. And then enter Sudarshan, 5 top 20s, 2 top 6s this season. Inside the top 33, by the way, for strokes gained in all these categories. Total 17th, 19th in putting. And this is not just in this week's field. This is overall. So I didn't narrow it down in that way. 26 on approach, 33rd off the tee, a little bit shaky around the green. But we know that he's played very well in his rookie season. The Canadian that learned how to play from YouTube. Gerard, I mentioned, 3 runner-ups on the PGA Tour over the last 2 seasons. And maybe this is going to get him through the door for that first victory, because this guy is like the ringer. He's like the guy in the basketball court where it's like, oh man, who's this guy? Who's this guy on the range? He can't play. And then he's a ringer, and it's like they're hustling the rest of the guys, even though there's more known commodities here. So it's not quite like Woody Harrelson and White Men Can't Jump when Wesley Snipes pulls the hustle on the street ball court. But Gerard and Yellow Miraju plus 1750, a team that played very well here last year. Not a bargain on the price because of that. 20-1 is the best I saw. They finished 4th. Michael Chorbjornsson and Carl Phillips, the 2 Stanford teammates, who, by the way, both live in Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville area. So what that mean? They play a lot and practice a lot on the Pete Dye layout, TPC Sawgrass, where the Players' Championship is held. Chorbjornsson has been a little bit more of the strength of the team when you look at what he's done this year. Contended in Phoenix, finished 3rd, was right there in Houston, was there in the Players before that snowman took him out very early in round 4. He's contended on Pete Dye and TPC courses. I remember back all the way to the Travelers in 2022 at TPC River Highlands when he was T4, when he was still playing at Stanford, was an amateur. Phillips, by the way, does have a PGA Tour victory in one of the alternate events. He's been a little bit down, but he's been making most of his cuts. So Chor and Phillips, Team Cardinal here at 20-1. And then Team DP World Tour, trying to make it on the PGA Tour, I guess. Haw-Tong Lee and Jordan Smith, 25-1. This week, by the way, is the 10-year anniversary of Haw-Tong Lee's first DP World Tour victory in his native China. The Volvo China Open, by the way, is the DP World Tour event. So it's like okay, the biggest star in Chinese golf, certainly the highest ranked player in the world golf rankings from China. He's not playing the home open this week.
Mm-hmm.
So he's here for a reason. He's trying to get that first PGA Tour victory, as is Jordan Smith, who's won a couple times in the DP World Tour. And Jordan Smith is a guy that was kind of always up there, multiple contenders, like was always in that top 10, right? Very consistent. So these two have played many times over the years together and paired together in the DP World Tour events. Both rank in the top 25, by the way, for strokes gained total over the last 24 rounds. So that was a little bit of a narrative streak kind of hunch play for me. Halton Lee and Jordan Smith, 25-1. Hayden Springer and Alex Smalley at 40-1. Smalley has not made the cut here in 3 attempts, but he's gone 11 of his last 12 dating back last fall. I know you bet Alex Smalley frequently is kind of like a mid-range to bomb type play in some of these events. Not a long hitter off the tee, but really good with the irons, top 30 in approach on the tour. Now you get a longer hitter in Springer. Now Springer, to be honest, he had to go down to the Korn Ferry Tour. Did not have enough FedEx Cup points to keep his card, but was one of the longest hitters on the tour last season. I think he was like right outside the top 20 for club head speed. He finished T18 here with Nate Lashley. So if you look at some of those like strokes gain numbers recently, and you get some of them numbers on the Korn Ferry Tour, even though he's making cuts, like those aren't going to dazzle you. But I think kind of that mix with Springer and Smalley, where you got a good ball striker, good iron player with a guy who can bomb it off the tee, maybe could be a surprise this week. And then kind of along that same philosophy here, Rico Hoey, David Lipsky, 45-1. Lipsky has actually finished fourth here twice, last year with Dylan Wu and in 2022 with Aaron Rai. But now David Lipsky, who, by the way, challenged, finished second at the Valspar to Fitzpatrick. So kind of getting closer to that first win. Now he pairs up with Rico Hoey, who's kind of cooled last season. And you and I bet him a lot last year. Yeah. And the reason why is because he had 6 top 10 finishes and was pretty darn consistent. He's kind of cooled a little bit, but he was third last season for strokes gained off the tee, also 8th on approach. Like only Scottie Scheffler was better statistically in ball striking. And that could be the pop off the tee for a shorter, accurate hitter like Lipsky to really finally get over a top in an event where he's always played well here. A couple fourths, a couple other top 20s. So Hoey and Lipsky, 45-1. And that was it for me. There were a couple I considered. I want to leave you enough time here, Matt, but I did consider Keith Mitchell and Brandt Snedeker, kind of the old veteran team. That was another one that I was really looking at. Jakob Skaab Olesen and Rasmus Niergaard Peterson. Tried that with the Højgaards last year, and they finished runner-up, almost went back to it. But those were kind of the considers that I left off this week.
Well, one was my first leave off, which was the Mitchell and Snedeker team, and the other did make my card. So I did play Niergaard Peterson, Olesen there in that one for everything that you just mentioned. Listen, the skill set of the two dudes combined, I think, is at least somewhat interesting here. You get Niergaard Peterson 16th in this field in ball striking here in 2026. So off the tee with the irons, pretty good with all of that. Middle of the field, really, in a lot of the other stuff, 44th in approach, like overall. But so when you mesh it with the off the tee, then that's how you get him to 16th. But I do believe that, again, the combination of that skill set for those two guys could be super interesting. I'm falling for it, Wes. I mean, it's just I played Wallace and Penge. Like I'm falling for the fact that you have the bomber mixed with another. It's like, can you overpower a course here? And can you do, and Penge, obviously we know what the upside is with him. His ceiling certainly is winning tournaments and stuff. And so the country mates here go down to New Orleans, and hopefully that's the shortest team that I got in there. I also played another little countryman team here in Ventura and Wrighton. Another kind of like skill set blend that I saw in there with those two teams. You get the bomber to come in with another guy that hits it pretty far off of the tee. And honestly, if you look, it's not necessarily the overall statistics that I love from them, but I did find, like, if you can get spike weeks from those two guys, and if you happen to get them at the same time, I think the upside for them is as high as maybe anyone in the field outside of Gerard and Yellow Mirage. Like, I think that there's like spike week, real contention there for Ventura and Wrighton. So I did have them. And then the last one for me, just 4 outrights. And we talked about Smotherman, right? I played Smotherman in Putnam, and this is the full on, like, one guy does one thing, the other guy does the other thing. But I mean, Smotherman mixed with Putnam could be an interesting call here. They'll do the math. They'll figure out which holes it's more beneficial for Smotherman to tee off, and then Putnam will, do the other holes and things like that. And I do think that you're getting a guy who's number 2 in 2026 in this field in ball striking. So great off the tee, great with approach. We know what Putnam does well. He's not long, but he can do all the other stuff pretty decent. So did go with the Smotherman Putnam team there. And that's just it. That's it for me this week. It's like you said, it's kind of an off week for us too, right,
Yeah.
Wes? I mean, it's like, yeah, I'll throw some darts. We'll have some fun. We'll watch it. But, we really get back into it next week.
Yeah, like if you don't get results this week, it's not like other weeks where it's like, oh, man, what was I doing? Did I look at something wrong? You didn't look at anything wrong this week. There's just randomness, and hope to get fortunate, and you get a couple guys in the mix there on Sunday. It certainly makes it a lot more enjoyable.
So real quick, guys, to end things out here, and appreciate you guys being with us here on the pod. If you haven't done so on the audio side, subscribe, rate, review. Do appreciate all of that. Real quick, Wes, just here in 2026, if you go to kind of like the 36 rounds in 2026, that'll get us through the majority of everybody's strokes gained rounds that they have inside of their portfolio. And so where we're at is obviously Scottie Scheffler is kind of your number 1 overall in strokes gained total. But after this little run, Matt Fitzpatrick is number 2 strokes gained total. Jake Knapp, it didn't go well this past week, but Jake Knapp, 3rd overall. Cam Young, tied with Colin Morikawa at 4th. I think this would surprise a lot of people, not you and I necessarily, but Jacob Bridgman is number 6th overall in strokes gained total here over in 2026. Then Xander, Rory, Hideki, Russell Henley, Mav McNeely, and Ludwig is kind of your dirty dozen right there as far as strokes gained total in 2026. Some of the names I think people would easily have guessed. Some of them maybe not so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So you do usually get the usual suspects, right? Up there with the Scotties and the Rorys. When we're looking at it, especially as we get into majors, we obviously don't have as much data for Liv. It seems if you've been following the news, they've got bigger issues, and really none of them except for Tyrrell Hatton, I thought, really played well at the Masters. So it'll be interesting to see how the market adjusts in terms of the PGA Championship at Aronimink next month. But yeah, I think generally you can see who is playing well most weeks, and then some of the guys that have spike weeks. So those are the guys certainly you're going to want to look at the PGA, at Aronimink. Of course, we're getting a couple signature events with Doral and then Quail Hollow for the Truist. So you're going to get a lot of, lead-in form. You're not going to get guys necessarily taking off weeks. You might have a couple that skip the Truist the week before the major, but these guys are going to be busy now, and a lot of it is just going to be a grind it out if you're playing that schedule where you're playing 5-6 weeks in a row, and how much energy do you have left for that major?
Who's getting it done off the tee here in 2026? Your number 1 strokes gained off the tee is not necessarily someone who frequents the top of the leaderboard, but Michael Brennan, number 1 off the tee, last 36 rounds here in 2026. Cam Young, Bob McIntyre, Rory McIlroy, Scottie Scheffler, Keith Mitchell, Chris Gotterup, Matt Fitzpatrick, which might shock some people there with that one. Xander Schauffele, Gary Woodland, probably not a surprise to most people. You see what he's been doing with the driver of late. Minwoo Lee and Marco Pinge. And so those guys, some of them, obviously, we know as bombers, it's easier on these bomber courses, certainly, to gain strokes off the tee when you're doing that. And from an approach standpoint, Colin Morikawa, the irons are still there with him. Number 1 overall here in 2026. There's Fitzpatrick yet again. Adam Scott, 3rd overall. Xander Schauffele, Daniel Berger, Justin Rose, Austin Smotherman, Hideki Matsuyama, Akshay Bhatia, Kurt Kitayama, and JJ Spawn, which is pretty interesting there, Wes, because the results, I know he won, but overall results there for Spawn, I think, have been certainly spotty at best. But the iron play, despite the fact that everything else has been all over the place, the iron play has still been strong for Spawn.
And who you don't see up there, but you're starting to see little incremental improvements, is the guy that led the approach for the last 3 years on planet Earth, basically, Scottie Scheffler. So he was in like the 90s. Now he's in the 60s on the PGA Tour. So starting to show a little bit of improvement here.
Guys, as Wes mentioned, don't hate yourself if you don't make money this week. Have fun. Watch it. We got playoffs going on. We got all that other stuff. So enjoy sports this week. It doesn't necessarily have to be the team tournament that you're trying to grind out, here. Just throw some darts, have some fun. Watch these guys, laugh and high five and stuff as they hit good shots and all that. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button in whatever platform that you are listening to us. We do appreciate all of the support. For Wes, I am Matt. Good luck on all your Zurich bets.